And this is a Wall Street Journal article. It says, basically, has more freedom led to better economies in the states? Very interesting article and kind of just breaking down what's been going on with the jobless rate. And so the jobless rate in our country is still very low, which is why even though there was a technical recession last year where there was 2 quarters of negative growth in the U.S. economy, overall there wasn't a lot of job loss, and so people didn't really feel like it was a recession. I can't argue with them. So, but that said, over the last 2-3 years, we've seen different states in our country who have operated different ways, had different policies. How do those government policies translate into success for the people and the businesses in those states? Well, let's take a look. Number 1, the state with the lowest unemployment rate is Utah, where we live, where we reside, one of the strongest areas to start, build, and grow a business in the state of Utah, where they make it easier, they make it more affordable, there's less regulation, there's less red tape, and as a result, Utah has the lowest unemployment rate in the country at 2.2%. That is incredibly low. Here's what an expert said in the article. It said Utah and a lot of the Mountain West, they recovered really rapidly, I would guess, from the pandemics what they're talking about. Says Mr. Kamins, Utah is a state that has been growing very quickly, adding residents at one of the fastest rates in the nation for a while, absorbing them into new jobs in high-wage, white-collar industries like tech and finance. And this is also interesting, right? Because the population is a big deal. If your population is growing, there's more opportunity, there's more demand, there's more need. But if your state starts losing population, like, for example, New York and California, more people have been moving out than have been moving in. And then guess what 2 states have seen the most actual employment increases? What states would you guess?
I mean, now that I see it, it's cheating, but I probably would have said Utah and Florida.
Yeah, 100%. And per capita, Utah is number 1, just like percentage based, but in actual like numbers, just because, Texas and Florida have more population. It's Texas and Florida saw the largest employment increases just by people because they have, a lot more population than Utah. But why do you think that is? Why is it that states like Texas and Florida have seen more employment growth, and then you've got states like New York is number 6 in the country with the highest? They have the 6th highest unemployment rate. Illinois is number 2. Washington, D.C., the location of where our federal government is located, they're the 3rd worst in our country when it comes to unemployment, and Michigan is number 7. California is number 13. So what is the common denominator? Why are some states struggling, losing population, having higher unemployment, and other states are not? And this, of course, is our freedom segment. So what do we think? Why is this?
It's freedom. That's the name of the segment here, Leo. It's the amount of freedom that local governments are allowing people in Texas, in Florida, in Utah to actually experience, which is very interesting to me because I bet my guess would be not that long ago, Arizona would probably be on this list. Oh, yeah. But guess where all of California is migrating? And guess what?
Going to Arizona.
Guess what state's in an absolute shitstorm right now because of it? Like, if you're going to relocate, why are you going to keep voting the exact same way and recreate what you just ruined? Like, that's what's ticking me off. I'm seeing, no offense, Jillian, you're not one of those California folks I'm talking about, so forgive this, but you're starting to see it in Utah already. Like, this last election was as close as we have ever been. Arizona shifted. You're seeing it in Nevada. It's like, either go back to California and keep voting the way you're going to vote, or try something new, because clearly it wasn't working in California.
No question. Bad policies lead to bad results. And when government oversteps, overtaxes, overregulates, what do you think that's going to do to a business? It was funny. I was watching a video earlier this morning, and they were talking about the fact when Elon Musk was, back when Tesla was still headquartered in California, and a lot of his companies were, and he's sitting there and he's saying, oh my word, we are paying so much more in taxes in the state of California, especially around the Bay Area and San Francisco. And I I just don't know if we can continue. This is just too expensive. It's costing us a lot of money that I could use to hire more people, money that I could use to produce more jobs. And he said, this is ridiculous. And then the mayor of San Francisco, that area somewhere around there, started texting, basically daring Elon Musk to leave. We don't need you. And now, Oracle, Tesla, all these different companies have been moving out of California. A lot of big finance firms have been moving out of the state of New York, going to Florida or going to Texas, and that's why these two states are dominating. They're seeing increases in employment, increases in population. So many strong businesses are going there, and they're taking those jobs with them. And at the end of the day, those bad policies, sometimes it takes time, but we're starting to see the results already. And so when people move out of these states and then they come to places like Texas, Florida, Utah, Idaho, Arizona, and they try to bring the same failed policies that did not work, that's where people have got to be smart and be honest with themselves and say, listen, overregulation, overtaxing, making life difficult on businesses and difficult on people doesn't work. Keeping things shut down for too long doesn't work. This tyranny, this lack of democracy, everyone wants to talk about, we're saving, our democracy's at stake. Yeah, our democracy is at stake in some of these states where there's so little freedom that people can't stand it anymore and they end up moving, and that's why you see these other states doing well, and that's what's going to continue to be the trend. And then here's the other result that we don't talk about enough. Utah, Florida, Texas have been showing actually excess, like they're actually netting a profit, meaning all the money they make from taxes, they are covering their state budgets, and they have abundance left over after they pay all the bills for the year, and then they can put that extra money back into other programs for the states. And then you've got states like California, who actually I think is down multiple $1 billion that they are short on their budget. And they're like, we're sure. And then we got to borrow money from the federal government. We got to tax people more. We got to take more money away from business owners so that they can't hire people because we're so irresponsible with our money as a state. And then now we look at our federal government. We have $31 trillion in debt as a federal government in the United States. And, we need to spend more money. We just had, another $2 trillion bill, another $2 trillion budget where we are continuing to spend more than we make. And it's just like where my family was back in 2010 or 11, when everybody in my wife's family was going to go to Cancun. We couldn't do it, right? No vacations for a few years. We've got to pay some debt off. We've got to get our money right. We had to sacrifice, and we did that. And now, we can go anywhere, do anything we want, but we had to go through that sacrifice. And our country needs to go through some sacrifice, and that's what needs to happen in some of these states.
Case in point with that, Leo, is like we have a handful of lenders that you look at the lender checklist. I have got a very, very qualified business. The return on the loan looks fantastic. Guess what? They're in California. And guess what? California legislature will not allow these types of loans to be lent to California-based businesses. Or there's so much damn red tape that these funding companies say it's going to cost us more to work with a California business. So forget it. We won't lend in California and we won't lend in Nevada. Like you see that all the time with good, legitimate, reputable lenders, which is just state governments handcuffing their businesses. I think it's a lot like parenting. Like the coddled kid that gets handouts still lives with his parents when he's 35, right? That's proven. If you overly coddle a kid and you
100%.
give them everything they ever need, you don't make them work for anything, they're going to have a really hard time growing up, taking accountability and moving out. And it's the exact same thing with the government. It's not a complicated process. People need independence.
They do. They need to be self-sufficient, and you take all that pride away from them, and you try to, give out free money. And Ray Dalio talks about this, and I don't know if he understands how his politics translate, because sometimes I think his politics doesn't quite make sense. But he's like, listen, when the government takes money and they put it in the hands of a business owner who is productive with it and utilizes it well, that's great. But when we just pass out money to people, that's not production. That's just passing out money that we're going to have to pay back. And that's the difference between productivity and just handing out money. And a lot of these states have handed out money. Now they can't do it anymore. They've overtaxed, overregulated, pushed businesses out the door. When you push an Elon Musk out the door in the state of California over to Texas, I mean, you're on a bad path there, and you're going to hurt everybody there. And then all these programs that you want to be able to pay for, you can't do it. Now you're down $20 billion or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in California, they've gotten to the point, and I saw this video in San Francisco where homeless people can go in and literally get a box of syringes. They can get those little straps that they tie around their arm. They can get lighters for their pipes, whatever. But, I mean, we've reached this point where we literally have AI. We have self-driving vehicles. We have all these things. And this has been a nonprofit idea of mine for quite a while now, Leo. But if someone's listening that can actually execute it,
we're going to do this.
Go for it. Do it. I want this to happen. Like, literally, we are to a point in the financial space. Give these homeless people a Venmo tag that they can go in and cash out, or the money can only be used at the same place EBT can be used. Like, give them a tag that I know if I send them money, it has to be shelter, it has to be food, they can't go buy drugs. Like, we're to the point that could be created. Easy. California is fintech haven. Like, someone out there make that happen and actually make a difference. Quit giving your homeless people syringes and give them money that they can actually use to better themselves.
Yeah. Give them a QR code, and they can go ahead and scan that QR code, and it's going towards rehab. It's going towards education to teach them the right way. Give a man a fish, he eats a day. Teach him how to fish, he eats for the rest of his life. And that's exactly what these guys need. And yeah, if no one else does it, we will do that for sure, because it's a great idea, that QR code. And then it translates into money that can only be used for good purposes to help them, not wasteful things, not continuing to push further their addiction, but actually help treat that addiction. And then what's even more baffling is places like San Francisco and Los Angeles. I mean, you've got these people out there that are addicts, and they're passing out needles, and then it's okay for them to go sit out right outside the bookstore or right outside this grocery store. And now what happens is people don't feel safe, and they don't go, and your business suffers, and you can't do anything about it. And that type of injustice is what we've seen in places like Michigan, like California, like New York. We've seen it in Oregon, in Washington, and now these economies in these states are paying the price for it, and that's why people are leaving.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that was our freedom segment, and we believe in fighting for freedom. And so if you do, make sure you're, commenting in there. If you got some value out of that segment, make sure you're sharing the show with others, and hopefully you're getting your money right at the myfigures.com money app.